Hey everybody, welcome to ThaxCast. As always, my name's Terrell. Thanks for stopping by. Real quick, I wanted to let you know, originally when I started this, I wanted to try to put out a video every week. But sometimes due to scheduling, or me not liking a video that I worked on, or the concept, or any number of things, once a week seems like it might be a little bit much, so occasionally we may have something every other week. But I'll try to make sure that the content's good and the presentation's well, so that it's worth the wait for the 2 weeks. Today I wanted to talk about a game series called King's Quest. It was developed by Sierra Entertainment in the 80s, and looking back on it, it was actually pretty tricky to play. There's a lot of good quests, riddles, and puzzles that I wonder how my brother and I solved at 8 to 10 years old. So I wanted to take you on a ride through that series today. This one's going to be kind of long, but buckle in. King's Quest was put out in 1984 by Sierra Entertainment. It was the game that popularized the brand and helped establish how their quest games would go, some of which I plan to do additional videos on. The series helped pioneer animation in a semi-3D environment in which you could explore multiple screens and walk behind and around objects. It was a game that forced you to use problem solving for puzzles, riddles, labyrinths, and forced analytical and creative thinking. Be careful though, sometimes you do something that prevents future correct actions, and then later on you have to revert back to an old save and replay parts of the game, so I recommend making multiple saves instead of just saving over the same one over and over. The series technically started in 1980 with The Wizard and the Princess. However, its ties to the series weren't really even referenced until King's Quest V, and the second game to come out was King's Quest I, Quest for the Crown. But I'm not really going to talk about The Wizard and the Princess. I'm going to focus on the games with the title King's Quest. King's Quest I, Quest for the Crown. Originally called simply King's Quest, the subtitle Quest for the Crown wasn't added until '87. The game uses a text interface and you use commands like talk to, pick up, and look at, etc. Sierra released an official remake of the game in 1990 that updated the graphics some, kept the text-based interface, but typing now paused the action and you can move the mouse to move. A team of anonymous developers called Tierra released an unofficial remake in 2001 that was similar to King's Quest V in graphics and interface. Up until this game, adventure games were almost entirely text-based with maybe a static image in the background. Daventry has had a rough few years and is in need of a pick-me-up. He calls on his bravest knight, Sir Graham, and charges him with recovering 3 legendary treasures lost in Daventry that could help with the kingdom's problems. If Graham can recover all 3 items, King Edward will name Graham king, since Edward has no heir. The remake made a few small changes, mostly by expanding the cutscenes and story, but making it a little bit more linear. So the game starts right outside the castle. First thing here is the bridge over the moat. This is one of those strange things about the early rendering. Your straight walk across the bridge follows a straight line on the screen, but not in what would be the reality of it. Shit. King's Quest also liked to make light of your dying with messages like this. Well, when you die, there is restore or restart. Restore goes back to your last save game. Restart, as you may have guessed, takes you all the way back to the start. So you have to save often to avoid having to replay large sections of the game. Okay, across the bridge, and you know what? I want to speed up the movement. Let's see. Fast. Nope, too fast to control. Guess I'll have to do this at normal speed the whole game. So you go in the castle and speak to King Edward. Otherwise, you just have to already know what to do. You leave the castle, go over another bridge, go to the next screen. Now, I know this from having played the game so many times, but guess what? You can move this rock. But if you move it from below the rock, it rolls on top of you and you die. So you have to roll it from above. You also have to know how to command Graham. In this screen, if I type, look at ground, it just says you see nothing special. But if you say, look at beach, it tells you there are pebbles there that you will need to pick up. The game takes things from other fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, Jack and the Beanstalk, and so on. So this part is really frustrating. You see this gnome that you have to guess his name. He gives you 3 guesses. Since this takes after fairy tales, you assume it's Rumpelstiltskin. Well, close but not right. Okay, well if you went into the witch's house, you could read a note on the table that says, sometimes it's wise to think backwards. Okay, so maybe it's Nixlitzselmer. Nope. Okay, so what could it be? How about this monstrosity? Yep, that's it. So how do you get that? Well, obviously you reverse the alphabet so that A equals Z and so on. I mean, did they think that this would be obvious? This was before you could just hop on the internet and Google that. You had to either be smart enough or tenacious enough to figure it out. On the plus side though, if you didn't guess his name, you get something else from him that will help you complete the same task just in a different manner. If you guessed right, you get magic beans, and you know what that means? Yep, you get to climb a beanstalk. If you take this path, be prepared to die. A lot. The path you have to take doesn't really seem to make sense when you look at it, but it is what it is. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the whole game. So you get the chest, the mirror, and the shield and become king. Go you! Now somebody get the king's body out of here. King's Quest II: Romancing the Throne came out in 1985 and 1987 depending on which way you needed to load the game, either a direct boot or DOS-based. The movie Romancing the Stone had just come out in 1984, so they thought it would be cute to spoof that title. As you can guess, this game is about finding King Graham a wife. The magic mirror shows him an image of his would-be wife, Valenice, held captive in the top of a large tower. Hey, I told you this was based on fairy tales. So he travels to the world of Kalima to rescue her. This game introduced a more linear story, with the world, characters, and story changing and developing as you go. The graphics and the gameplay are the same as the first game, with new puzzles and new fairy tales. King's Quest III: To Err is Human, released in 1986 and 87, again based on boot style. It was a pun on the proverb, to err is human, to forgive divine, by Alexander Pope. This game starts off just dropping you back in. You are Gwydion, a house servant to the evil wizard Manannan. The first time you play through it, it is hard to see the connection to the series, but it basically goes like this. Graham pissed off Manannan. Manannan kidnaps his baby son, Alexander, renames him Gwydion, and plans to kill him on his 18th birthday. Gwydion finds out and plans his great escape. After he escapes Manannan, he has to figure out how to get out of the land of Ludor. He ends up in Daventry and has to save a princess, and then the story is revealed to you and Alexander. The graphics are basically the same as the first two, and is, again, text-based. Oh, and don't let Manannan catch you holding anything that can be used as a spell ingredient. King's Quest IV: The Perils of Rosella. Released in 1988, this was one of the first PC games to support an actual sound card. This is the only King's Quest game that takes place in simulated real time. There are events that only happen in day or only at night, and some things that are actually timed. Rosella is Alexander's twin sister, the daughter of King Graham and Valenice. During some good old family time in the throne room, Graham has a heart attack. The fairy queen Genesta contacts Rosella through the magic mirror and says that Rosella can save King Graham if she travels to the fairyland of Tamir and gets a magic fruit. But to get back to Daventry, you have to help the fairy regain her power so she can send you back. The graphics are updated, the cutscenes are much longer and more detailed, and it's still text-based. It is more puzzles, riddles, and fairy tales. I actually don't think I ever completed this game. King's Quest V: Absence Makes the Heart Go Yonder. Yeah, you get it. It was released in 1990 and was the first use of VGA graphics in the series, so the graphics are much updated. It introduced a point-and-click interface and was fully voiced in dialogue and by a narrator. King Graham was out for a walk. When he returns, he finds the castle is gone. A nearby owl named Cedric saw the whole thing and tells Graham about it.
Oh, I know what happened to your castle. I saw it all, yes I did.
You did? Well then, what happened?
Cedric brings Graham to the land of Serenia, where the good wizard Crispin lives, and helps Graham. Cedric talks a lot and is sometimes whiny and annoying, but he sometimes says something relatively helpful. Graham needs to find the wizard Mordak to get his family back. Mordak, by the way, is the brother of the wizard Manannan that Alexander took care of in the third game. King's Quest VI: Heir Today, Gone Tomorrow, released in 92 and 93. 6 is arguably the best in the series. It's definitely the one I played the most. So at the end of King's Quest V, Alexander meets Princess Cassima of the Land of the Green Isles, who invites him to come visit. You have to have the manual if you want to figure out some of the puzzles. Now, you can Google the answers, but what's the fun in that? So Alexander travels to the Land of the Green Isles, crashes his boat on the way, and has to figure out what's going on. The Isles are kind of a mystery, even to the inhabitants. The main island, the Isle of the Crown, has an Arabian Nights theme. The Isle of Wonder is inspired by Alice in Wonderland. The Isle of the Sacred Mountain is inspired by classical Greek and Roman mythology. The Isle of the Beast is heavily forested and has several magical barriers. When you go to the castle, you can't talk to Cassima. You talk to the guards and eventually the vizier, who, similar to Disney's Aladdin, plans on forcing Cosima to marry him. But he tells Alexander that Cosima has always wanted to marry him and that Alexander must have misunderstood her intentions. By the way, the vizier is named Abdul al-Hazred, which is also supposed to be the fictional author of the Necronomicon. This game has different endings based on your actions and decisions. There is a short path and a long path, and each of those even has slight differences based on what you've done. Almost half of the quests in the game are optional, and most of them have more than one solution. King's Quest VII, The Princeless Bride, released in 1994. It has a very Disney feel. It even opens up with a cinematic that includes a musical number.
Grow up, young lady, that's what they all say. It's time to settle down, put childish things away. When you're happy, thrilled, delighted, you're going to be a bride.
It's about Valenice talking to Rosella about finding a husband. During their talk, they get split up, and so throughout the game, you alternate between the two in chapters, trying to reunite in the realm of Eldritch. This is the first game to use SVGA graphics, and is much smoother looking than the previous games. And the background is much more interactive, and the cursor is now a smart cursor instead of a toggling command cursor. The heart of the game is the same. Look around, solve puzzles, progress the story, but it is slightly more linear than the previous titles. The biggest complaint I have about this is how long some of the actions take. In the description below, I will link a video to the whole intro and first chapter of my playthrough. Since it won't be one of my normal videos, it won't be searchable. It will only be available through the link in the description or the link at the end of the video. Keep in mind, it's not a speed playthrough, it's just me trying to remember what to do and dying at least once in case I wanted to use it in this video. King's Quest VIII, Mask of Eternity, released in December of 1998. I honestly never played this one. When it came out, I was in high school and it was a combination of me being too busy to play much and the family computer not being good enough to handle it. We didn't have a computer that could handle it until around 2001. It's the only King's Quest game that isn't about Graham and his family. It's about a peasant knight named Connor. Connor saves Daventry for King Graham. It has mixed reviews, but the hardcore King's Quest fans were pretty irked that it didn't really have much to do about Graham's family. Last but not least, there's just King's Quest that was released in 2015 for Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4, and PC. The controls are simple but not point and click. You control Graham with joysticks on the consoles, and it's mostly a one-button interactivity setup. It isn't a remake or a reboot, it's sort of a reimagining of the series. It has 5 chapters, and they basically fill in some of the gaps in the story between the original games and give more detail around the events surrounding the games. King Graham is in bad health and is talking to his grandkids about his past adventures. He has a hard time remembering parts of it, and you are in control of his memoried self. The game has some linear parts and some semi-open world parts. It stays true to the adventure, puzzle-solving, questing. There are multiple ways to accomplish tasks like most of the other games. Unlike games like Fable, there is not an evil Graham option. He will always be heroic, except for that embarrassing thing he did in Game 4. Some tasks have to be done in a certain order or time for certain outcomes. Some people will live or die based on your actions, and people will regard you in different ways. All in all, if you haven't played through the previous King's Quest games and jump into this with fresh eyes, it's probably an okay game, but not what most people would expect in a new style game. But if you grew up playing the King's Quest games, or at least have an appreciation for them, this game is really good and will get you choked up. If you ever get the inclination, it's well worth the purchase. I got mine on a crazy Steam sale for the entire Sierra Classic collection. You can just buy the King's Quest collection by itself, but the Sierra Classic collection also has several other games that I do plan on doing some videos about later on. So if you can find them on sale, it's worth the purchase to get the entire collection of Sierra games, but if not, the King's Quest collection alone is worth the purchase. That's it for today. Did you play the games back in the day? What are your thoughts on it? If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. As always, your subscription is appreciated. Thanks for stopping by. Be good to each other, and have a good one.